broadcast my face for the very first time on the Buccanidiots YouTube channel. And I have a special guest. You guys are, if on YouTube, you already know who the special guest is. It's Gino Grigio. Yeah. Gino Grigio, a.k.a. Gene from BucWhatYaHeard. Gene, what's up?
Man, I'm honored to be here. I love what you guys are doing, man. And you really, I mean, you guys are getting people pumped up for the season. And that's something I don't know, you can't put a price tag on it. I mean, what you guys are doing is awesome. And I love the interactions, man. I think it's great.
Listen, the off season is long, bro. I mean, God, it feels like forever ago that I was standing in the end zone at Raymond James Stadium surrounded by other Bucs fans. Poppy Latte was there. Stephen Beck was there. Sammer was there. And Jameis threw the pick six in overtime to end the season.
Yeah.
It seems like that was a year ago. It doesn't seem like a few months ago. So there's been a lot that's happened since then. Obviously, the biggest news is that we decided to move on from Jameis and bring in Tom Brady. And then the draft is this week and, new uniforms. There's a lot to be excited about, man.
Yeah. It's really interesting. This season here, this off season, has been a lot easier for me to deal with. I think people are a lot more tolerant, especially with everything that's going on. And shout out to everybody. Hopefully everybody's being healthy, staying healthy. People are, they're not as aggressive as they have been in years past that I've seen, on social media when it comes to talking about the draft, when it talking about free agency. People have been pretty chill. Everybody's been like a little, they've dialed it back a little bit. So I like that, man. I'm, for me, I'm right there with you. I basically just opened up the new bottle of scotch as soon as Jameis threw that pick six. I just okay, and I just kind of went in my room and just chilled.
Where did you land in the Jameis discussion? Like, what side of the fence were you on? Were you pro Jameis, keep him no matter what, I don't care who's available, or were you in the wait and see camp, but let's see who's available, or were you like pro get Jameis out of here?
Personally, I like Jameis Winston. I like what he's an athlete. He's a football player. Outside of the interceptions and the turnovers, just watching him play, when he's not, making some of these mistakes. And granted, some of these weren't his fault, but outside of that, I mean, it's been fun to watch him play. And, ultimately it's about getting to the playoffs. And so I understand. So kind of where I was when all this was over, saw the pick six, heard about the injuries, saw how Jameis was trying to rehab from these injuries. I was kind of indifferent. It's like when Gerald McCoy, they were talking about Gerald McCoy leaving. They were talking about trading Gerald McCoy. They were talking about all this stuff. I was indifferent because right now, ultimately, I'm a Bucs fan, and I want this team to go to the playoffs. That right now is the only thing I'm wanting to talk about. I don't want to talk about when the last game of the season and you're talking about who are the Bucs getting in free agency. I don't want to talk about the draft. I want to talk about who the Bucs are going to be playing next in the playoffs. That is where my mindset is right now. And I think that's where, as a fan base, that's where we need to be. And, nothing else should be acceptable other than getting to the playoffs. So when the season was over, I understood both sides, and I just wanted to wait and see what happened.
I mean, that's a fair assessment of the situation. I kind of, I was extremely emotional about Jameis early on in the season. And he kind of won me back towards the end of the season. I tend to do that. I wear my emotion on my sleeve.
Yeah.
When the dust settles, I start to look at things logically and from a football perspective, from a business perspective.
Understood.
And I just didn't think – first of all, I didn't think Tom Brady would be available. And the other options to me weren't worth moving on from a guy you've invested so much in. You already have a year in this new system. But clearly, you can't ignore the deficiencies. And ultimately, this ownership and Jason Light and Bruce Arians decided that they didn't think they didn't feel like they could win football games with him, and they feel like Tom Brady is an upgrade, even at 42. He will be 43 when the season starts. And it's hard to argue with that. I mean, you brought in the greatest player of all time.
Interestingly enough, as you're talking about that, the one thing that I do have a regret, I would have loved to see what Jameis did in year 2 of this system, just to kind of get a feel, just to get closure, to know, okay, he wasn't the right guy, he wasn't the right fit. Mm-hmm. I understand why the ownership did what they did. You're talking about Tom fucking Brady here. You're talking about bringing this guy in to work with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and your tight end core that you currently have right now. And, I was looking at the roster and I'm like, the roster's fluid. There's a lot of changes that can be made. There's a lot of moves left to be made before we even kick off to the, in the regular season. So it's going to be interesting, moving forward to see what they do to build this team. But my expectations are exactly this. The Bucs are going to the playoffs. If they don't, the season will be a disappointment to me.
I mean, shouldn't that be
every year?
Yeah, shouldn't that be every fan's view on it? I mean, there is no second place prize. I don't give a shit if you win your division. Like, we've won a Super Bowl here in Tampa.
Yeah.
So, we know what it feels like to get to the mountaintop. Nothing else.
And
should
the thing
be
is,
acceptable.
when I think about me and you,
mm-hmm.
we've been to Houlihan Stadium. We've been to the Big Sombrero. We've been to games there. You've seen you've been upset after a Green Bay Packers game or
mm-hmm.
after a Minnesota Vikings game,
mm-hmm.
and you're walking out of Houlihan Stadium and you're pissed off, and then this team gets turned around, and it's a totally different vibe,
yep.
and you're there from going from a bad team, going to a good team, going to a great team, getting to the mountaintop, and then rolling all the way down the mountain, and you're down at the bottom.
Yeah, no, we've hit rock bottom.
Yes.
Again.
And this has been over a decade. I'm going to count the 9-win season and the 10-win season as outliers. If you look at the body of work that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have from 2003 to the present, those are outliers where they're having those winning seasons. That needs to change.
Well, Gene, fans have been starving for anything positive, and we celebrate these small victories. It's like, you remember when we used to cheer when we got a first down, like a standing ovation? That was a victory for us because we literally have not had any success, in a long time. So 12 years into this, since the Super Bowl victory, or maybe 13, lost track of the years now, but whatever it is, it's too long. And so people will take going to the playoffs as a victory because it feels like it's a step in the right direction. But doing that with this quarterback, when you're all in like this coaching staff is now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Bruce Arians has said he's not here for long. This is bringing in Brady is a not here for long move.
Yeah.
You got to put all your, you just went all in. You pushed all your chips in. You're gambling on getting to the Super Bowl and winning a Super Bowl. Otherwise, this move doesn't make sense whatsoever. They're going to sell more tickets. They're going to sell more jerseys.
Oh, they've already done that.
The Glazers will make more money based on this move, but it could end up setting us back or, putting us back where we've been for a while now. And we felt like we've been on, at least I have anyways, have felt like we've been on the verge of getting over that hump, right?
I would say since the 9-6 season, I feel like the Buccaneers have underachieved. I don't know if it's coaching. I don't know exactly what it is, but the Buccaneers have underachieved. I feel like they should have been more competitive in other games. And some people would attribute that to quarterback play. Some people would attribute it to the defense. Some people would attribute it to coaching. But whatever the reason, the Bucs haven't done what they've needed to do. And those 2 5-win seasons in a row, that was very painful. Just knowing what this team is capable of doing. I know injuries played a big part in it too. So, I can't quite put my finger on what happened, but damn, I mean, it hurts when you got the squad and they can go out there and do stuff and they end up not doing it, or they end up, 1 point or less or 1 touchdown or less, and they lose so many of these games. And that to me is probably one of the most frustrating things.
We saw the way Tony Dungy built this team. We were here for that.
Yeah.
It didn't happen overnight.
No.
But it was a combination of drafting well and then Tony Dungy just building a brand here. We had an identity with Dungy, and we all knew what we were going to get on Sundays. It wasn't always pretty. You got used to watching, 6 to 10 football games. You were biting your nails all the time because we weren't scoring a lot of points, but our defense was holding the teams to under 10 points a game. Yeah. It got frustrating at times. Ultimately, it got so frustrating, even with some success, that this ownership decided to fire the best coach it's ever had and risk it all and mortgage part of our future to bring in John Gruden, and it worked. It worked. So they've done an all-in move before. Yeah. Here. This is not outside of
to that point. When you look at the Bucs have that Lombardi trophy, was it worth it to mortgage all this for that?
Yes, it absolutely was.
Me and you are on the same page.
No doubt about it. Because guess what? Atlanta right now and Carolina right now, they have nothing to keep them warm at night.
Yeah, nothing. Well, when Atlanta, I'm good with that. But I get what
Carolina too. Fuck Carolina. Listen, we do. I can die a happy man, knowing that. Listen, I was here for it. I cried real man tears.
Yeah, me too.
When Rondé Barber picked off Donovan McNabb, like that's when I actually cried. The Super Bowl was just
the icing on the cake.
It was just like exactly that game was. Yeah. I never felt the anxiety in that game. It was just amazing.
And what's interesting that I remember that game, and I think I had to go back a couple of years because I hated the Eagles. Mm-hmm. I remember Donovan McNabb celebrating or dancing or doing something, and the Bucs couldn't beat him. Bucs just could not beat him. Yep. And McNabb reminds me of Cam Newton, but I'll get on that another. He's like a front runner, but I'll talk about that another time. So when you see Rondé Barber get that interception, and you see Donovan McNugget running half-assed down the field trying to catch him, I mean, that right there is one of the greatest feelings in the world. That's because of what me and you and people, fans like us, we went through, just watching this team, continuously get close, but they couldn't make it happen. And, it was just frustrating to see that. So, those are the kind of things that we've been through. And to see this team not do anything, this could have been a dynasty. They could have won at least 3 Super Bowls.
Yeah, I agree.
If with doing everything correctly, they could have been a way more dominant team than what they were. But then you move on from Rich McKay to Bruce Allen, and I think that played a huge factor in it. But that's for another show. But just kind of getting back to it, just where we are right now, it's time for fans to change their mindset, and it's about getting to the playoffs, playing for a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. I mean, you look at New Orleans, you look at Atlanta, you look at Carolina. They've all been. They haven't, and New Orleans is the only team that's really been able to make it happen, other than the Bucs in the NFC South. So I know it's hard to do, but that should be where our mindset is, and we shouldn't settle for anything less.
It's awesome to go back and think about those times. And you bring up the fact that, I mean, newer Bucs fans don't understand what it meant, not just to beat the Eagles and get to the Super Bowl, but what it meant to beat the Eagles. Because like you said, this was a dynasty cut short by the Eagles, and then, of course, the Rams a few years before. But we could not beat the Eagles. We couldn't get over the cold weather thing. Oh, Bucs can't win when it's under whatever fucking degrees it was. Remember that
35, shit? Was it 35 degrees or something?
I don't remember what. Like man. So to not only to win the NFC Championship, but to do it against the Eagles in Philadelphia in spectacular fashion. Real quick, Gene, why isn't there a statue of Rondé Barber outside of Raymond James Stadium right now?
I don't know.
Could there not be?
With his thumb pointing
pointing at his jersey.
Yeah.
Why isn't there a bronze statue at one of the entrances to the stadium? Because it's the greatest moment in the history of this team. On the other side, you could have Derek Brooks running in doing the same thing in the Super Bowl. But we need to have a bronze statue of that moment, because that's the biggest moment in team history. And like I said, I will always love Rondé Barber for that, because if it wasn't for that play, we probably lose that game. We probably see the Eagles in the Super Bowl. And this, we're just like the Falcons right now, crying over what should have been.
And they shut down the dump. That was the biggest part of all of this to me.
Yep.
Was that House of Horrors. They shut it down. They shut it down with an L. And that right there makes all the difference in the world. Just, those types of memories. Now, I'm not taking away from anything that's been going on right now. Some of the plays that Jameis Winston's made. Mm-hmm. You had Doug Martin, number 2 in the league in rushing, and there's just so many things that have happened, but they're sporadic.
Yeah.
It hasn't been anything consistent.
Small victories, man.
It is. And we need to change our mindset. I mean, right. Like for me, I'm a Yankees fan. And so, and I know people will kick me for this, but I never switched over to the Rays because I didn't like their management. There's a lot of things about the Rays I didn't like it at the time. And it just never happened because I've just been a Yankees fan since I was a little kid. And I think about all the things that George Steinbrenner did for Tampa.
Yep. Now,
kind of getting back to where I was going with this, there are expectations for teams like the Yankees that we're going to the playoffs. And I think that's, part of where, the Bucs need to be, and I don't know. And I can't really say if there's like you said, there's accumulation of different things it could be, but they just haven't put themselves in a position to get there. They've underachieved at times.
Yeah. And that brings us to where we're at right now. We are bringing in a guy who comes from an organization who has the expectation you're describing. Like
exactly.
Nobody in New England is celebrating a playoff berth or celebrating, because we won 9 games, or celebrating, or looking forward to the draft every year like we do here. Like they're clearly they've earned what they've gotten, but Super Bowl or bust every single year for them. Yeah. And so you bring in the guy who basically fostered that type of environment, and you put him in this locker room. Do you think that it's going to have instant impact, instant change on the practice field, in the locker room, in the meetings right now, on the Zoom calls they're going to be doing? I mean, does it change everybody's expectations?
Most definitely. And as you know, and I've gone on record saying I love Jameis Winston. This guy right here will hold you accountable. You round off one of those fucking routes, you're going to hear about it. Mm-hmm. You're supposed to be here playing in this. You're supposed to be picking up this block or this blitz, and you don't. You're going to hear about it. You think you hear about it from the coach, but this guy is going to hold people accountable. And that's one of the things that I'm really interested to see just how that all works out. Players like Donovan Smith, players like Mike Evans dropping, I love Mike Evans too, but some of those drop passes are just unacceptable when you can change a 1st and 10, you've got a first down and you're 30 yards down the field, but it's a drop pass.
Yeah.
I mean, little things like that, what did my grandma used to say? The devil's in the details. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of thing that I feel like has been missed a lot is, keying in on some of those details and, cleaning some of that stuff up. So yeah, I'm super excited about that. And, if you've watched any of his film, you've seen him on the sidelines, he's pissed off. He's pissed off at an offensive coordinator. Hey, what's going on here? He wants to win. And I believe that's going to really, I want to say resonate with the locker room, basically.
Yeah, I believe Jameis wanted to win.
Absolutely. And I'm not taking anything away from
him. One thing and it's not necessarily his job to be the alpha of the locker room. Mm-hmm. I mean, we won a Super Bowl with the defensive tackle being the alpha of the locker room, but there has to be somebody in the locker room who holds everybody accountable. And like I said, as good of a leader as Jameis was, as hard of a worker as he wasn't that guy. And we haven't had that guy. Like I said, there's 51 other guys that aren't that guy either. Levante David's not that guy. But we just brought in one of those guys.
Yeah.
You sit in that meeting room in training camp, and you fuck up on film. You know who's down there in the front row, shaking his head, and you know, you used to feel that way with Dungy too. Like, you didn't want to disappoint him. You were going to do whatever you could because you didn't want to disappoint Dungy. And then in the locker room, you already had a sheriff in there who you couldn't even go in that area of the locker room if you weren't out there working as hard as he was. And it wasn't just Sapp's mouth. Sapp did it on the field. Sapp was the lifeblood and the heart of this team. And before that, it was Hardy Nickerson. And Nickerson, I think, taught these young guys. And we had a lot of quiet leaders too, with Brooks and Barber and Lynch. But you and I both know
it was Sapp.
Who the top dog was in that locker room. And we haven't had a dog like that in this locker room.
Yeah,
since those days.
We've had a bunch of good guys.
Yeah,
had some really nice, pleasant guys that you want to go hang out with, or church social or whatever. But we haven't had a dog in there. I would say JPP has probably been as close as we've had. I don't know, maybe and maybe you can come up with another name. Over the last decade, I would say JPP is probably the closest we've had to that. Maybe Ndamukong Suh, but Ndamukong Suh's pretty quiet. I would say probably JPP. What do you think?
No, for sure. JPP's been I didn't expect that type of leadership from the guy, but JPP brings Super Bowl rings with him.
Yeah.
He absolutely also comes from an organization that's been to the mountaintop several times. So he brings that in there, and a lot of guys look up to him. Plus, he's just a freak of fucking nature.
No doubt, man. I mean, just what
his product. Go
ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say saw some shit on his Instagram. I think it was yesterday, and he had said something like, basically alluded to the fact that he's going to be back for the full season. He's going to have big sack numbers. And somebody put like, "Yep, you hopefully you'll be over 10 sacks." And JPP commented under him like, 10 sacks. He's like my goals are set a whole lot higher than 10 sacks.
Bro, think about it. I think he ended up with 8 sacks.
He did. Yep.
With
no training camp. Yeah.
And he played that short a period of time. He came back in the end of October?
Yep.
And he ended up with 8 sacks.
Yeah, and you had a guy on the other side that was,
a monster.
vacuuming up sacks left and right. The hope is they can continue and take that momentum from last year and continue to do it this year. And that kind of brings me to this year, okay?
Yeah.
We have a new quarterback. System's going to be the same. They're going to put a playbook together, with our current plays, but obviously run a lot more plays that are more suited to what Brady does well. They'd be stupid not to. Everybody knows that's going to happen.
Right.
But on the defensive side, everything stays the same.
Yeah.
We saw some growth at the end of the year last year, albeit against competition, not the best of competition. Do you think we see growth in this second year in bowl system with the young guys that were in there last year learning a system? Do you think we add pieces in the draft? And if so, where on the defense do you think we need help?
I would like to see another edge rusher personally.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to be huge. Possibly somebody in the secondary, but that could be a later pick. I've kind of as you look across that field, I mean, you lost a couple of players, Bo Allen and I'm just drawing a blank on it.
Nassib.
Carl Nassib. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Both gone. And I feel like you can definitely upgrade in the draft and get somebody to fill that hole.
Yeah.
With Bo Allen being just a rotational player, I think it would be ideal to get somebody in there that it would be an upgrade that somebody you'll have for the future as well. So I would say edge rusher would probably be where I would be looking, as at the draft. Possibly defensive tackle as well. And Ndamukong Suh's on a 1-year deal, I believe. Mm-hmm. And it's always important to, plan for next year or the year after, not this year, but next year. Keep continuously planning.
Right.
a really good example is the Baltimore Ravens. You look at how the Baltimore Ravens draft. I've looked at some of their defensive and offensive line, just looked at their trenches, and there have been years I would have taken their worst team, offensive and defensive line, over some of the teams, some of the personnel that we've had here, just based on some of the moves they've made.
Well, look at our center. He was a cast off from that unit,
exactly,
you know, and was an enormous upgrade for us.
Yeah,
you know, based on what we had going on, and we're trying to work Ali Marpet there.
Yeah.
We've neglected investing in the trenches.
Yeah, and you cannot just throw a pick at the trenches. You just say, okay, here's a high round pick. Let me throw it at it. Like an Adrian Claiborne, like some of the other, like a Brian Price. Some of the moves that the Bucs have made, just in general, have just been like, well, I don't know if it's talent evaluation or possibly not realizing that this guy just mentally doesn't have it, or
Brian Price was a draft crush of mine. Had it not been for his body falling apart all of a sudden, I think he could have been special. I think him and McCoy, the combo, could have been something special. Yeah. It was unfortunate what happened to him, and he just, he was out of the league pretty much like that. I think he had he tried to stay in with the Bears. He was just never the same after those injuries. But no, you're absolutely correct.
And I have to say this. To me, when I look at Bruce Allen, to Mark Dominic, and we get up to Light, talent evaluation has played a huge factor in why the Bucs haven't gotten quality players. And I would argue that with anybody.
Where's the homegrown talent in the trenches?
That's what I'm saying. You got these players and then they're gone, and you've got coaching turnover, which factors into a lot of this too. And he's like, oh, you're not going to fit our scheme. Let's move on. Or this coach, kind of has that attitude, but there's just never been any stability. And it's just been continuous miss. And, here we are.
I get that, but listen, on the defensive line, I mean, you draft the D tackle, We haven't grown any depth on that line.
No, not at all.
Golston is, the grayest hair we have out there. Outside of that, we drafted Sue, but there's nobody left. We drafted a kid last year. He got injured, didn't play very much.
Right.
I can't remember his name, but
that's my point. Yeah, they just, these players haven't stuck around, and the system hasn't been around long enough to really cultivate anything. And again, that goes back to me to talent evaluation, because you got players that are just studs and they can play in any fucking system you put in front of them. Mm-hmm. There are players out there, and there are players out there that are like that, but the Bucs have just rarely been able to jump on players like that, to be honest.
It was nice to hit on a guy like Shaq Barrett.
Absolutely.
They got lucky. This guy fits Bowles' system to a T. Bowles knows exactly how to use him. Mm. He learned under Von Miller. The guy was ready to come here and wreck.
Yeah. Dude, I had watched him in Denver and in preseason games. And this guy, I'm like, why is this guy on the bench? There's Von Miller. Never mind.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
or Bradley Chubb's on the other side. This guy just didn't get the opportunity, and the Bucs gave him the opportunity, and he's made the most of that opportunity. I'm happy he's a Buccaneer.
He'll eventually, if he's able to maintain the same level of impact. I'm not saying sack numbers. I'm just talking about impact in general that he had this year. I mean, he was whooping guys. He was whooping guys like left and right. Those are not inflated sack numbers. He earned those sacks.
Yeah. He abused quite a few offensive linemen.
Yeah, when JPP came back and they were no longer able to slide protection to that side, there were some problems out there. Yeah. So that 14th pick, we could do a lot of things with that 14th pick. Clearly, everybody's projecting that we draft a tackle because we have a glaring hole on the right side. I'm not necessarily in the same boat in regards to saying we have to draft a tackle there, because it's not like we're filling the left tackle position. Donovan Smith is our left tackle. To draft a right tackle at 14, you can do it, but you're you're usually investing, in a left tackle type talent, and you can probably get a great starting quality right tackle in the second round. So if there's a guy there like a Kinlaw or Brown or a Chason, a blue chip defensive lineman, defensive tackle, defensive end, or even a guy like Tua, if he happens to slide, if you are considering building for the future, which I know right now they're not, they're in the all-in mode. But if somebody like that happens to fall to you and can get a red shirt for a year or two behind Brady, do you do that? Do you take that leap and bring the guy in?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you why. You got Tom Brady, who I cannot argue. For a while, I didn't want to ever admit it, but he is the greatest quarterback I've ever watched. I mean, just it's
him or Montana.
It's him or Montana. You could go back and forth with that. And I'm not talking about statistics. I'm just talking about how he manages the game.
Yep.
I'm talking about how he comes to the line and he can look at a defense and decide what he's going to do. And just the way he gets the ball out. I think I think of Drew Brees. And I know they're totally different.
No, he's the closest thing to it. Yep.
Yeah, but
I
just
agree.
his decision making and just getting the ball out like it's nothing. It's just impressive. And I believe that whoever you get, when you look at Patrick Mahomes sitting behind the quarterback,
Alex Smith.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you. Old age,
I know. I'm the same way. Hey, I'm actually impressed I was able to pull that one out.
Yeah. But just being able to sit down and no pressure on you. Mm-hmm. Just learn the system, learn how everything's going to work, and then you move forward and you're ready to step in at that time. I feel like that's important. If there are injury issues, like allegedly I hear these anonymous GMs, which I do want to gripe about that later on in the show, but anonymous GMs are trashing this guy, saying, his Wonderlic score is bad, or he doesn't, he's injury prone, or his injuries haven't healed. This kid, I watched his pro day and I was like, wow, it's amazing. I mean, what this guy can do. Mm-hmm. If you are able to, and there will be, and this is my hot take right here, somebody you're expecting in the top 10 is going to drop down around where the Bucs can go get him.
Happens every year.
It is going to happen.
Yep.
Jason Light, I love Jason Light. He drafts in a vacuum. There are sometimes I want to launch his ass into the sun, but then there are other times where I'm like, man, this guy he's that guy. He's brought in all these different players through the draft and through free agency, and he's continuously gotten better. I know the first couple of years, you're like, man, what is this guy doing? But then you kind of see some of the players he's brought in. He's seen how they've grown and matured, and how he's been able to bring them in, and they've been able to do what they need to do. So those are my expectations for him, is he will go out and get that guy that the Bucs will be able to use even beyond the Brady era. So if it's a quarterback, and I think that quarterback is available, I think it would behoove them, only because you've got a guy that can sit down behind an amazing quarterback and learn the system, and just kind of grow from that.
Being a general manager is a tough job, especially like you said, going from coach to coach, staff to staff. I think our scouting staff's kind of stayed, fairly secure. Yeah, exactly. But
nice guy.
When you bring, one of the things that we were all very excited about last year, it wasn't just the addition of Bruce Arians. It was the staff he brought in.
Yes.
The all-star staff. So when you have, position coaches and assistant coaches who are also evaluating these guys, right? It's the job of these area scouts to bring back all the film, but it's the position coaches are the ones who makes the decisions. They're going to say, oh, Kinlaw fits our system. Brown definitely doesn't fit our system. I don't want him anywhere near this system. This is what fits Bowles' system. This is the guy I want because it fits what we do. Right. We saw that with Devin White last year. There were a lot of, don't draft an off-the-ball linebacker. Everybody was enamored with Devin White's physical abilities, but we saw what ultimately ended up playing out. And if you look at, and I was on the same boat with everybody else last year. 3 more secondary players. Like, what the hell is this? Like, why are we investing in the secondary again when we just invested in the secondary the year before? But all those guys showed out as the season went on. All the guys they brought in showed out, and it was, again, I want to credit the staff, Arians' staff, in finding and pushing to select those guys that fit this system and fit what we do.
I have to ask you, do you feel like, and I've given credit to Jason Light, but what Bruce Arians has brought in, what the coaching staff, do you feel like, because I thought that this was the most quality draft last year that I've seen from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in years, just across the board from top to bottom. And you can't hit on everything, but the majority of the players that, I didn't say majority, but so many of the players that they hit on, it was just incredible. So, from that aspect, I'm glad you brought the coaching staff. That's great, man. And I'm thinking, that they had to have played some part in getting some of these players in here. And that's why you look, okay, let's get a Sean Murphy Bunting in here. Just players like that were able to come in and show, this is what we need to do. They didn't listen to a jerk like me who's like, oh, you got to draft in the trenches. They went out and got Devin White, and Devin White made you forget about Quan Alexander just that fast. So again, the draft last year was amazing, and that's why my expectations right now are so high. I'm looking forward to it, bro. I am so looking forward to this. This is going to be incredible.
Are you a draft guy? Do you follow it closely? Do you follow
I follow it, but I fail.
Do you have prospects in mind? Are you the type of guy who grades guys? Are you YouTube scouting guys, or you just kind of have an idea for the general guys?
I have an idea. I have an idea for players. I think I kind of backed away from it after I would say it's been a couple of drafts ago, and it just, some of the players that I wanted, they didn't pan out in the season. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing, man? I don't have any business. Let's see who they get. I can look at positions and tell you, okay, let's look at this guy. But I don't know, like this year, I've been like super lazy this year. I have not gotten into prospects like I normally do. Just the hangover from losing to Atlanta at the end of the season just kind of took it out of me this year. I'm not going to lie. And I'm like, okay, let's see what they do. And I've gotten to watch some of these guys like Kinlaw. I love him. There's a linebacker out of LSU that I really like, and I cannot think of it.
Patrick Queen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Incredible ball skills.
You mean that Jason Light might be looking at LSU players? Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Hey, don't quote me on it. I can't make any promises, but it could happen. No, but all joking aside, man, I just know what the Bucs have, and watching some of these guys play, and I feel like, the offensive line, I know Bruce Arians said that the offensive line is just fine, but depth-wise, I can't agree with that.
Well, there is no depth.
Yeah. That's my whole point.
Name one depth piece. Name one backup that's going to provide us any security.
Yeah, and that goes back to what we were talking about. When you miss on so many draft picks and you don't address certain positions, or you throw a draft pick at a certain position, or you throw a free agent at a certain position, that's not building depth.
No,
it isn't.
Well, we've been hiring guns for the last 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been all about, which is why when free agency starts, you see Bucs fans lose their fucking minds over anybody who becomes available, because that's the way we've been trained now to expect to build on this team.
Yeah, and I think winning fixes all that, because then you tend to back up and wait to see what your administration's going to do. Whereas now everybody's a GM. I mean, I can go right now. I could show you 50,000 tweets of people that have included me. Hey, this is who the Bucs are going to draft. This is what I think they're going to do. I've seen a lot of mock drafts, and I don't have a problem with it. People, it's fun to do that for some people. I enjoy seeing it, But at the end of the day, I want to see what people do on the field. I want them to prove it on the field. I mean, it's good. It's good for a team to be good on paper, but I want them to go out there and stomp the hell out of a team. And then I know, okay, there we go. Like Randy Watson, I really wanted Randy Watson to be good, man. I really did.
Good.
and again, he may mature into that position. He's going to have to earn it. There's another draft position.
I don't know. Hey, Tom Brady likes those wide receivers, bro. Which is why Scotty Miller is wide receiver number 1 now. Did I just say that on video? I said it on video. Wide receiver number 1, Scotty Miller. Listen, Tom Brady, he breeds them. He creates them in a laboratory. Okay. You don't think the moment that Tom Brady was announced as our quarterback, that Scotty Miller didn't go back and watch every Wes Welker? Like this is him in the lab and on YouTube watching all of them. Edelman, Welker, every little slot white receiver that's ever played. I mean, he's probably been doing that anyways, because that's who people have compared him to. And he's a little bit different. He actually has the ability to play outside as well, which he did last year.
He's a little undersized compared to Wes Welker, though. Would you?
Yeah, I think he's actually. I have to go back and see what they look like height, weight, speed wise, but that kid can fly.
Yeah, oh my God!
Did you see that? Somebody posted. I want to say it was Jameis in the Cut posted a video of him running track, or somebody. Forgive me, by the way, whoever posted that. But he's got track speed, and I don't know. It's too.
Well, who was the DB? Easy. He smoked some DB last year before he got injured. Yeah, smoked him, and I think it was a 9 route too. He just smoked him, and I was like,
he's got that ability. He just can't stay healthy, which is why Sammer's like, that guy probably got injured, walking to the mailbox today. We had a hamstring, something was up. They weren't getting hydrated. We had a hamstring plague last year towards the end of the season at the wide receiver position, which is why, people being so critical of the last 3 games of the season, where Jameis was throwing to, Ishmael Hyman and these guys off the street.
Yeah, that's why. He got Perriman that contract.
Yeah, he sure did.
He got Perriman that contract, because I can tell you, he would have been in Cleveland. He wouldn't have got that contract.
No, he wouldn't have been. Which is how he just picked him off the street last year for nothing.
Yeah, went to Labor Ready and said, "Hey, I'll take him. Come on with us."
Good for him.
Yeah,
good for him. Good kid.
But he went and played. He balled out.
He did.
I mean, he had a good chemistry with his quarterback, and that's what it was all about right there. And as soon as that chemistry developed, I mean, I stopped wanting to curb stomp the guy and launch him into the sun. I was like, wow. Mm-hmm. I mean, from the beginning of the year to where he ended up was like night and day. And nobody saw that coming. Nobody.
Hey, shout out to Antoine Randall and the other coaches on that offensive staff who got that guy and these other receivers ready to play. And again, it's year 2 in the system for these guys. What you want to see, which we didn't see in the Dirk years and we didn't see in the Lovie Smith years, is growth. You want to see growth from the first game to the 6th game, from the 6th game to the 12th game, from the 12th game to and then off season, you want to continue to see that growth. Yeah. So when they come back next season, they're matured.
This is the one thing that frustrated me, especially the Dirk Cutter years and the Lovie Smith years. It's like they forgot how to play football when they came back. They were like, it's like walking in quicksand. It's like you had players that they ended the season hot. They were like, oh yeah, we're ready for next season. Then you get them back in there and you're like, wait a minute, is this the same player we saw last year?
Right.
What's going on? But like I said,
you saw regression.
Yeah. And again, that goes back to what I was saying. I have high expectations that these players are going to come in and they're going to be able to just pick up where they left off and play at a high level and not have to relearn everything, but play at a high level. And I know with this COVID-19, that presents an obstacle, but
for all 32 teams, though. All 32
absolutely,
teams.
Absolutely. I'm not taking anything away from anybody. However, I will say this, what they ended the season with, I would love to see them pick up where they left off and just lay it to a team. And you don't have to worry about a lot of turnovers. And potentially they'll have 2 running backs back there. And you can commit more to the run, and it's just going to change. This Bucs team will not look like the team you saw last year. I think they're going to be vastly improved.
How do you think having a quarterback like Tom Brady helps the run game outside of the pieces in front of him? Okay, we already know that four of the 5 starters are coming back up front, and it's likely we draft a rookie running back, but most likely when the season begins, it's going to be Ronald Jones back there as a starter. So how do you think just having Tom Brady back there is going to help this running game or the threat of the run?
I think that Ronald Jones is going to thrive. I believe, that was my other hot take.
Wait, are you saying that you believe in Ronald Jones?
Oh, most definitely.
Because it seems like everybody is ready to cast that dude off into the sun.
Are you fucking kidding me? I mean, did you see where he came from his rookie season to his sophomore season?
Yeah, he grew. He definitely grew.
The work he put in to get to where he is, it speaks volumes about this guy and what he wants to do as an NFL player. Now, what I saw was a lot of situations where you couldn't run the ball because of the score, where the Bucs were, in the game, they couldn't commit to the run. So, you're throwing the ball. I mean, Jameis Winston ended up with over 5,000 yards passing. So that tells you that there were a lot of reps that were taken away from running backs because they were continuously having to throw the ball to catch up or stay in a game or what have you. There were maybe a couple of games that I saw where the Bucs were able to use the run to control the game, but it was very rare. Now, this year, I'm looking at Ronald Jones. Did you see the picture of Jack Ronald Jones?
You mean Ron Jones?
Yeah, Ron Jones, who run over me and you and my mom.
Yeah, because he's graduated from Ronald to Ron. Yeah. Obviously, Tom Brady dubbed him Ron Jones, so that's what he is for the rest of his life. Yeah. His mom, his dad better start calling him Ron, okay? And clearly he's putting on a Ron-type body. He looks like he's got some grown man strength out there.
That's what I'm saying, and I'm not trying to tackle
He stopped dyeing his hair silly colors. He looks like he's out there to work, and he's going to be in that backfield right behind Tom Brady now.
Yeah, and this is the one thing that people fail to realize. He has nice hands. He's got nice hands, and that was allegedly that was a knock on him coming out of college, was that he couldn't catch the ball. But they never threw him. In the system at USC, there wasn't a situation where he really had to catch the ball out of the backfield. And it's learning that here in the NFL, what he did last year, I thought was amazing. And just year before, he hasn't dropped a lot of passes. And I think that gets lost in the translation too. And you've got a quarterback like a Tom Brady who can get the ball out quickly to a running back, and you have that speed in space, and you have the power that we've seen Ron Jones run with, and that's a dangerous situation right there.
You want to hear my hot take? You want somebody that's been like the grave has been dug, the dirt's been put on top, and they just built a 25-story building on top. As far as Bucs fans are concerned, Dare is off this team. Like, he's not worthy. Mm-mm. I mean, I think the kid showed some promise personally. Yeah, I think he caught close to 40 balls. Right. Rookie,
but he's a good block. He's a good blocker.
Good blocker, but probably has the best hands out of the group back there. And TJ Logan didn't get that many opportunities, so I'm not really sure, other than some kick returning that he had. But he's a guy that might end up sticking, and he's pretty versatile as well. And like we were alluding to earlier, how about growth? Maybe he comes back, a different guy in year 2 as well.
Yeah. And I agree with you. And this is my take. I think when these guys get into camp, there's going to be some players that you weren't expecting, like a Dare Ogunbowale, that's going to come out there and surprise everybody by his growth. We'll see what he's done in the offseason. We'll see if that translates into camp and gives him the opportunity, because you want the best players on the team. If a let's say Randy Watson comes in and supplants Scotty Miller because he's been working hard in the off season. You want the best players on the field. I understand people get caught up in the name recognition. Oh, I wanted this guy. Or on the flip side of that, wanting to be right. Oh, yeah, I said this a couple of years ago, and I want to be right, and this is why I'm sticking with I want the best players on the field. when it gets down to the middle of the season, the back end of the season, when injuries creep up, you want players that are depth players to be able to step up and step in and do what they need to do.
Well, you're going to need it, Gene. Okay, because it's
100%.
Yeah, Donovan Smith may not make it through the season, or Mike Evans might not make it through the season. Like you better have guys back there that can fill in. You know, everything looks rosy right now on paper, but
everything's 0-0.
Football. Ryan Jensen gets hurt. Who's our starting center?
Yeah. And see, that's what scares me is if you look across the board at this team, with the exception of maybe the linebacker, you look at the starters, and then there's such a steep drop-off to the players that rotate in. Huge drop-off. And just imagine, you lose one of those guys, and then you're stuck with one of these guys, and you're in for a world of hurt. And as much as, it's the NFL, it's going to happen. So it's just a matter of, shoring up positions that, we could get in and get by until somebody gets healthy, possibly.
Well, versatility is everything, especially on the offensive line. If you really want to pinpoint who the Bucs are going to target, and you're scouting players right now for the draft on Thursday, look at the guys that are the most versatile. That's who they're going to want to bring in here. They're going to want a guy who can play maybe three positions. Maybe he can play right and left tackle and slide into guard. They're going to look for guards that can play right and left and play center. But you're kind of forced to do that because of the roster size. You're not carrying 10 offensive linemen on this roster. You're going to carry 8, and you might carry 7 on game day, or they may even go into certain game days where it's where they have 6 guys in there. So like, you better have some versatility back there. You better have the ability for guys to swing left and right. But you want to build that. You want to build some depth. You want the 53rd guy on this team, on this roster, to be a monster. You want to hurt when you cut your guys after training camp. And I think we're starting to get there.
We saw that last year.
Yeah, I think we're starting to get there.
Yeah. And I mean, when you looked at the roster cuts and you're like, oh man, we got to get rid of this guy, or we got to let this guy go. That's where you want to be at. It's not like, oh, okay, I understand why you're letting him go. That says all you need to know. Because I remember under Lovie Smith, and even with Dirk Cutter in some situations, there were players that were cut, and I'm like, oh, okay, I understand.
Listen, we could have cut down to 45 because you already knew we were going to sign 8 guys off of the street.
Yeah,
because our 53 wasn't even close to a starting level squad, and we knew that we were going to have to go look for our backup right tackle, our backup center off of the Ravens or off of whoever, because we just weren't able to cultivate any type of depth and grow them in-house. And the problem with doing that is it's hard. Nobody's getting rid of blue chip offensive linemen. Nobody's getting rid of –
They're like gold. They're like gold.
Every once in a while, you might hit the lottery like we did with Shaq Barrett, but that's a rarity. I mean, think about how many times we brought in a linebacker or a defensive end off the street, and they've been nothing. And I'm talking about the higher paid guys haven't even come close to shining like Shaq did last year. So if you gamble on that, think of all the tackles and all the guards we brought into camp last year. None of them are here, man. None of them.
Yeah.
And it's and we picked up a tackle from the Colts. I do think we go trenches heavy in this draft, whether it's offense or defensive line.
You really have to. You really have to.
Yep.
I think that needs to be the theme moving forward. Just because you can do so much more with a team, plug and play. You can get a decent running back that can run behind a line. I look at what the Cowboys have done. Cowboys have continuously addressed the trenches, and you look at where they are right now. I hate them, but you see what they've done over the years. The Ravens, the Steelers, another team that they draft well when it comes to the trenches. So
probably the best drafting team in the NFL in Pittsburgh. They know what they're looking for.
Yeah.
They target guys. The guys they draft seem like they print them on a 3D printer because it seems to always fit what they do well.
Yeah.
And we need to have that here.
Yeah.
We haven't had an identity at all since Gruden left here.
Yeah.
We just haven't. There has been no identity. What are we? What were we under Dirk? What were we really? Like, you started to see some of what Arians wanted to do. And I wasn't a big Arizona Cardinals fan, but I know that he likes to play action. I know he likes to go deep, but the run game was fairly non-existent.
Yeah.
It seemed to devolve. A lot of plays seemed to devolve back into what we saw in the Dirk Cutter area, which was Jameis Winston back there playing sandlot football.
Right.
It's just, even though we were one of the highest scoring offenses, threw for a lot of yards, it just never felt like a well-oiled machine. Never.
Yeah. But you got to consider, you need 4 quarters of football from offense and defense. And
you do.
We haven't consistently, the Bucs have not consistently had that going back to Gruden. They just haven't. And I would even go so far as to say, after maybe 2010, 2011, the defense became a liability. And there were times where you had a lead. Quarterback gets you a lead. Josh Freeman gets you a lead. He goes off the field. Defense can't hold it. The opposing offense goes down the field and they score. So, I'm happy that, the defense is getting the attention it deserves, because I think that's going to lead to a better offense as the team moves forward.
Yeah, and I don't think we're necessarily done adding
not at all.
Free agents to this team either.
The roster is fluid till day one.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind this time last year, Noah Spence was supposed to be a key piece on this defensive line, and we look completely different right now than we did at that time last year, because we are going to get second and third tier defenders. I have a feeling we'll probably bring in a veteran or two in the secondary, just to at least compete. Maybe not.
Right.
Maybe they don't stick because we have a lot of youth with a lot of talent. Rendax has been all over Twitter today talking about how deep the safety position is. Sure, I get it. We got some talent back there, but shit, somebody needs to step up and be that guy.
Yeah.
And Mike Edwards,
we still don't have that.
Yeah, Mike Edwards looked good at times. Whitehead looked good at times. They also looked completely fucking lost at times back there.
Yeah. And they can't stay healthy. That's another thing that you really, and it's not of any fault of theirs. I'm just saying that these are the players we have, and they're not. It
might be. If they don't take care of their body properly, don't hydrate, don't get the proper sleep, don't get the proper nutrition, don't work hard, don't stretch, don't do what pros do to get their bodies ready, then it could be partially their fault.
And I'm not an expert. I'm just a jerk off with a podcast. But honestly, I like when my son played football, I got him hooked up with one of the trainers from Shutdown U. And that was where Darrelle Revis and some of your Patrick Peterson, when they were rehabbing from injuries, they work with these guys. And I was told that, technique plays a big part in some of the hamstring injuries that you see.
Yeah, it does. Stretching, all that shit, man.
Yeah.
Listen, you're a big UFC guy, right? You watch the UFC.
Yeah. Yeah.
The most finely tuned athletes on the planet. These guys are obsessed with their bodies, with the physicality. They train in a lot of different disciplines. Half these guys do yoga and ballet and Pilates, and they stretch, they do kettlebells, all these things to train their body for their craft, specifically for what they do well. 100%. And when you bring in a guy like Mike Edwards and a guy like Scotty Miller, they don't come from an environment where they've had to work like that as a job. And so it may take some time, and I'm sure the training staff is building that in them, but they've got to want, like, if you've watched the Tom versus Time documentary, you see how obsessed Tom Brady is with keeping his body in peak physical
100%.
condition. At 42 years old, he's insane, honestly. He's an insane person when you hear him talk about it, but that's kind of what it takes. And so it takes some time for these young guys to learn and understand, listen, this is everything. I've got to stretch. I've got to hydrate. I've got to do all these things. So I don't pull those hamstrings.
Your body is your investment.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's kind of how we are. But just kind of getting back to that, I mean, how you run the ball, how you take off, your technique, and how important all that is. In a lot of that attributes to these injuries and stuff like that. You'll see there are certain players in the NFL that don't get those hamstring injuries, just don't get them. And I've just kind of watched who they train with or who they work out with, and what they're doing, and that plays a big part in it. I mean, just look at their technique, taking off taking off from the line, that kind of thing. Just, you know, just if you run just however you want to, however it feels comfortable. I mean, those are the guys that end up with the hamstring injuries. You know, it's crazy.
And again, it's also how you train in the weight room. You know, guys who are big weight guys and do a lot of heavy lifting, but don't do the proper stretching and don't watch their salt intake and all those things. Like those things all come into play when you're talking about muscle injuries. And like I said, it's the training staff's job to educate them. But at the end of the day, it's as an individual, they have to learn how to properly train and take care of their bodies and things like that. So, yeah, man, it's you know, it's been a nice change in regards to what this staff has brought to, you know, the group of players that we have out there. Year two, man, it should look a whole lot better.
It should be fluent. It should be the end of last season going into this season. It should just be fluent how everything's going to work out. I can't stress it enough. I'm so excited to see some of these players like Devin White, like Ron Jones, players like Cameron Brate, who's coming back. He's going to be 100% healthy. Mm-hmm. These different players being able to come back, how they respond from last season to this season. You've got a quality quarterback who is not going to be a liability as far as turnovers and stuff like that goes. So he's not going to take those risks. So I'm looking forward to this team picking up where they left off and excelling. I expect to see more from some of these players. I expect to see more upgrades from players that are gone, and just bring the players they're being replaced with to bring in somebody who's better than what they had. So that's going to be huge for me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing less of a bipolar team, more stability, more efficiency. I mean, you already know Brady's going to bring that to the offense, right. And I'm hoping that carries over onto the defense as well. I mean, these defense is going to be facing Tom Brady in practice every fucking week. So that's going to sharpen their skills as well.
Most definitely.
Yeah. So you're looking at a guy who demands perfection. You can only benefit from that on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah. So it's going to be exciting, man. I'm looking forward to it. And some of these, like your podcast, you getting regenerated and getting out there and getting your podcast out there. Sammer, Loose Cannons with you and Sammer and Poppy Latte, all you guys, doing
Speaking
your
of
thing.
Which, I don't mean to ask this of you on live air, on video, but I'm going to do a little promotion here. Thursday, you probably already seen us tweeting it out. Thursday, we're having a live draft show starting at 6 p.m. Okay, it's good. It's going to be a simulcast across Facebook, Twitter, as well as YouTube, and everybody can be involved. And we're going to be bringing in guests to come in, and because it's going to be probably 5 or 6 hours covering the draft, just shooting the shit. And if you're available, let me know. Hit me up. And I want to get you on there.
I'm good. I'd love to be on there, man. I would love that.
Listen, there's going to be some shenanigans going on. Listen, the last episode I filmed with them, we had some a guy who covers the Patriots for Locked On Patriots. Yeah. And Poppy Latte pulled his shirt up and I showed my nipples. Like, listen, that's the kind of shit that we. It's gonna be stupid.
See,
like you're drinking a beer. It's gonna be fucking. I'm gonna be lit by the time the 14th pick comes around. It's not gonna be pretty.
Yeah, I'm looking. Hey, I'm all in. I would love to be a part of that.
All right.
I'm super excited, bro. I can't tell you.
Sammer's driving the truck, but I will do my best to get you in to be a part of it because. I mean, we need guys like you out there and fans. We are going to be pulling in fans to be a part of this as well.
Dude, that right there has just got me excited because I've always felt like in the Bay Area, fans get slighted. I've always felt like, and I'm not being, just to be very honest, the media hasn't taken very good care of the fans. And I think that's why you see so many podcasts. That's why you see so many streams. For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And for you guys to even think enough to have fans on, I'm all in for that, man. I think that is awesome. And, that's something that we need to continue on because we need to pick up the slack where media is dropping it at, and just get those kind of things, get these kind of shows out.
I'm kind of like you though, Gene. I don't consider myself part of the media, and I never will. By the way,
No.
I don't want to.
But
I don't want to be a journalist. I'm a fucking fan, and all I care about is the fans. And then on game day, I want to be. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, but it's important to think about this, man, because you got a lot of people that want to listen to you and listen to what you have to say, listen to your stories. When you're bullshitting and stuff like that, being able to just know that, okay, man, he respects what I'm saying, or he's interested in what I'm saying, or this show is great, they're interested in what I'm saying. That's what's important. And I think, again, that's what gets missed, by a lot of this, local media. And I've seen that where people have asked a question and just gotten shredded for asking a question, and I'm just like, we can't do that. The fans are important. The fans are important. You're wanting to fill Raymond James Stadium. You're wanting people to purchase that merchandise and, just keep things going. I mean, that's kind of what it takes, is being able to have outlets like yourself. And I consider you an outlet. I consider Loose Cannons an outlet.
There's a lot of great content out there.
Yeah.
Man.
Oh, absolutely. Real Bucs Talk. My guy Pless and
Pless
Mark
is the
Ramirez.
shit.
Yeah, he's the guy's head to toe, man. He's the GM. So, just shows like that, man. I just EMT Ashley. I mean, when she decides to do her Talk
That's
to
my
Play
girl.
podcast, it's dope to have people out there like that, and they're willing to listen to what listeners have to say, man. And that, again, that's what's missing. And when you talk about local sports media,
I'll tell you what, though, we've got a lot of great fans who push out a ton of great content. You named a few. Red over at Cannon Fodder. Like, there's just so much out there, and I consume it all. I see you tweet shit out all the time. Like, all right, y'all, I've been through all my podcasts. Somebody feed me something new, because I'm on the road all week too.
Yeah.
And I consume as much of it as I can. Mm-hmm. And this is a good time for me to allow you to promote yourself here, because I'm sure most people who are watching this know who you are. You have been the godfather of YouTube for a long time. Since old school kind of retired, and you went old school for a while, and then Mr. Bucs Nation James, who has a wildly popular YouTube channel.
Yeah, he does.
Great job as well. But you've been around on YouTube for a long, long time. Tell people how they can find you on Twitter and on your socials.
Yeah, definitely. You can find me on YouTube at BucWhatYaHeard. If you follow me on Twitter, just hit me up at BucWhatYaHeard. Look for Gino Grigio. And you follow me, I'll follow you back. Uh-huh. I love talking sports. Sometimes I'll talk about one of the movies. I was watching something on Innocence Project on Netflix, man. I just whatever pops in my head. I'm pretty random, but I try to stick to sports, but it doesn't always work out that way.
Listen, man, I'm a huge fan. You were actually one of the first people who brought me on, even before I started the Buccanidiots podcast, and I always appreciate that, because you are a man of the people. You are a man of the fans. You are a huge fan, and that's the beauty of the internet. I used to go on message boards back in the day before people had their own podcasts. Like the old Tampa Bay online message board, and then Pewter Report's original message board.
They had some wars on there.
They did. There's still some people that hang around from back in those days. That's still frequent on Twitter. But to be able to have the ability to find like-minded people who all have the same sickness as I do, because this is a sickness, y'all. Y'all realize that 12 years in, you probably should have ran by now. That's like being in an abusive relationship and you still stay. That's us. Yeah.
You're a diehard fan. If you became a Buccaneers fan after the Super Bowl, you are a diehard fan.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like buying in a recession and then staying in that shitty piece of shit that you bought, and it just keeps getting worse. But anyways, story. we all hope and we all pray that things are going to be different this year. And
the Bucs are going to the playoffs.
The Bucs better win a fucking Super Bowl
at minimum.
At minimum.
Let me throw that caveat in there. At minimum, the Bucs are going to the playoffs.
Gino Grigio speaks, and he spoke it into existence, and that's what I expect as well.
Yeah. Yeah, my guy Poppy Latte, man. Shout out to him. I was inspired by the name. I was like, you know what, man? Everybody's got a cool name, Stank Bastard. Then you've got Poppy Latte. So I'm like, you know what? If I'm gonna hang out with these guys or associate with these guys, maybe I need to kind of change the name up there.
Y'all sip on some Gino Grigio and get right, okay? All right, Buccanidiots, you know I love you. I hope you enjoyed the very, very first episode on YouTube. And there's going to be many more. Gene, I love you, man.
All right, man. We out.
All right, peace out.